Hello and welcome to the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. I'm your host, Jeff Harvey, registered migration agent with Down Under Visa, the premier Australian migration agent in Manila, Philippines, specialising in visas for Australian Filipina couples. We hope you enjoy this podcast and hope it proves useful to you. Please feel free to share this with your partner and with any of your interested friends. Let's get started. Multiple entry tourist visas, the reality. Now, I can still remember my delight in telling our very first recipient of a multiple entry tourist visa from Philippines to Australia what a great result we had for them. Now, this was many years ago, and this was a Subclass 676 at the time. Now they're a Subclass 600, but look, essentially they're the same tourist visa. They've changed more in culture than substance over the years. Now, first one, the no further stay, condition 8503. Look, that was pretty standard once upon a time. We haven't seen one in a lot of years, happy to say. It would be more than 3 years. For those who don't know what this means, again, it used to be a fairly stock standard thing. No further stay meant just that, no further stay in Australia. It was not possible to apply for another visa while the applicant was inside Australia. So they couldn't go and apply for a further tourist visa stay, an onshore tourist visa like you can now. And they couldn't apply for a partner visa. So, we would get people contacting us and saying, well, look, we got married and we want to stay here and can we apply for a partner visa? I'd say, please look at your grant and tell me, does it say condition 8503? They'd say, well, yes, it does. And you'd have to say, look, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to leave the country and we're going to have to do an offshore partner visa there. They'd be shattered because they weren't expecting that, but there wasn't a thing we could do about it. So that was what that did mean. Now, it's not impossible to get that these days. It is still, condition 8503 still exists. It hasn't been abolished. All we can say is that for us, it's been 1,000 plus tourist visas since we've seen one. So been a long time. And look, they used to regularly issue tourist visa grants to couples who hadn't met in person yet but had evidence of an established relationship otherwise. Look, that's now no longer the case. That ceased to be the case a number of years ago when basically we had a whole string of tourist visa applications refused, and in each case that was where they hadn't met in person. So they tightened up, and so that is the case now. We have had a few exceptions when somebody's been unable to travel because, say, they're in a wheelchair, something like that, but even then there's still no guarantee. So as a general rule, our advice to people is don't waste your time and money. If you haven't met in person, don't bother applying for a tourist visa. And the other thing is they give out multiple entry tourist visas fairly regularly now. And look, sometimes when we don't even ask for them, we get them. Look, it's not always the case. In other words, there's no guarantees of getting one, but it happens far more often. Again, it's not something we control. It's not something that we can guarantee or say we're most likely to get this. We can apply for a multiple entry tourist visa. We may not get it. But then we can apply for a single entry and we get a multiple entry. So it's a bit like that. Now, Australian visas and high expectations. Now, I go on about this fairly regularly because it is an essential message. Visas are grants, they are not rights. Okay, they're grants, not rights. So it's not your right as an Australian to invite somebody and bring them to Australia. You can't say, but, hey, I'm an Australian, I've got the right to do this, I can invite somebody. You can invite somebody till you're blue in the face, but You don't have the right to decide who comes into Australia, because the way it works is that, look, Immigration Department is given the authority and the duty under the Australian Constitution to protect the borders and to decide who enters and who doesn't enter. They do have the right to do that. It's not your right. You don't have a constitutional right to decide who enters Australia. Now look, maybe our regulars are tired of hearing this, but I keep saying it because Aussies, including myself, we grew up thinking we could pretty much get whatever we wanted as long as we were fair and reasonable and we asked for it. We expected the person behind the counter or the other end of the phone wasn't too much different to us and would see logic if you explained it all to them. You knew that if you went in there and you thumped the counter and raised your voice and, made a reasonable amount of sense, demanded to see the manager, etc., in most cases, they would back down and they would give you what it was that you asked for. But guess what? Immigration isn't quite like that. Now, despite the Home Affairs website making it look like online shopping, where you pick what you want and then go finalise the shopping cart, having that thinking will lead to some serious disappointment. Now, this is more like building that resort in the wetlands area and having to do the environmental impact study to protect the grey spotted bottomed hoot owl, or the rare mosquito or whatever it happened to be. Rules and regulations you need to meet in order to show you meet the best interest of the country first and foremost. Now your wants and needs don't rate very high at all. So, having a look over the website and saying, I think I'll have, it won't get you very far. Meaning, people will look at it and say, look, it would suit me, it would suit us right down to the ground. Look, I want her to come to Australia for a year. I want her to come to Australia for, I've had people ask for a 2-year tourist visa. Well, they don't exist. I've had people look at multiple entry visas where the applicant is required to leave every 3 months, and I've said, that doesn't suit me. I want this. Well, I'm not being sarcastic here, but it just doesn't. What you want it doesn't really rate particularly highly there. There are rules, and you follow the rules. They don't follow what you want. The customer is not always right. Now, on to the main point here. Okay, multiple entry tourist visas. How do they work? Okay, in simple terms, the visa holder gets to stay a maximum of 3 months. I'm saying 3 months, generally 3 months. I've had unusual ones from time to time where they've granted a 6-month multiple entry tourist visa, but as a general rule that you are more likely to have 3 months. So what it means is the visa holder gets to stay maximum of 3 months per visit, then they need to go. And understand this is really important, that's 3 calendar months, and it's not 90 days, American style. So you arrive on the 15th of this month, she needs to leave Australia on or before the 15th of 3 months from now. So today happens to be the 1st of March. It means that, she needs to leave on or before the 1st of June 2019. Okay, just a bit of a hint here, and a strong hint here is don't leave it till the last minute. We've had occasions where, there have been delays due to weather or something like that, where somebody can't leave and they happen to be a day late, especially if it happens to be a late night flight, something like that. And get caught like that, and there's no flexibility there whatsoever. 3 months means 3 months. You don't add a day and go, what the heck, I'm sure they'll be okay and relaxed about that. They won't be. We just had one fairly recently where they were quite shattered by the whole thing, that they just made a mistake and she happened to leave 4 days late. Well, her visa was cancelled. Now, she was planning on dropping off and coming back a few weeks later. Well, she couldn't because the visa had been cancelled because she had overstayed. Okay. Now, multiple entry means she can come back again. A single entry means you have one entry into Australia, single entry into Australia, no more. And that means that she enters, she stays up to 3 months or whatever. I mean, if she stays a week and then says, oh, look, I have to go back home because my mother's sick, I'll be back in a week. Well, she won't be back on that visa because the moment she leaves, well, bang, that visa's finished. Okay, multiple entry means she can keep coming back. Now, they will generally set they will normally say a maximum of 3 months per visit, and it will normally be valid for the next 12 months. Or, in fact, what it will say is the last day that she can arrive will be 12 months. So if it's issued today, it will be the last day of entry will be the 1st of March 2020, which means she can arrive on or before 1st of March 2020, and she can still stay another 3 months. Okay, so, yeah, not a bad deal at all if you happen to get it. So that's how it works. Look, once upon a time, visa holders with multiple entry visas, now they could leave, they could go back to the Philippines, or even the couple would trip off and spend the weekend in Bali on the beach, and they'd come back a few days later, we'll go off to Singapore, do a bit of shopping, Hong Kong, whatever, turn around, straight back again, and didn't have a problem. Now, we had the occasional issue with the occasional overzealous department officer at the airport asking questions, but it didn't happen often enough to be an issue. Now, we still advised waiting a week before returning back then, but didn't become an issue. But things have changed lately. Now, let me explain. Now, Tony Abbott brought in something called Border Force, which is part of Home Affairs. Take note that I had a colleague make a joke recently. It's 2019. It's about time the department changed their name again, because they seem to like changing it fairly often. It was, went from Department of Immigration and Citizenship. I think it was Ethnic Affairs or something or other before then. I can't even remember. Went over to Border Protection, which sounded very scary. And now they brought in something called Home Affairs, which sounds nice and cuddly and friendly. But Border Force, though, is part of Home Affairs, but it's separate from the visa granting staff. Now, these are the tough guys. These are the ones with the guns, the army boots, very stern, dark uniform, and the title of Force. They kind of look like those old movies where they'd have the secret police behind the Iron Curtain that did awful things to people. They looked a little bit like these characters. Now, it's odd because it became a force. Remember when we used to have a police force in different states? Now, that a long time ago, that became a police service because they seemed to think that perhaps the police could be there to, as a service to the Australian people instead of a force to keep them in line. But Tony Abbott decided we needed a new force, so we ended up with an Australian Border Force. So there you have it. Now, no one tells us the mechanics or the politics of how the department works, and I'm not really sure I'd really want to know anyway. But I guess we've all, no, not all of us, those of us who've worked in companies before, large companies, there'll be different sections within that company, and they usually disagree. And the sales staff don't get on with the warehouse staff. No one gets on with the accounting, because they all have different agendas, even though they work within the same company. Well, I think it's probably much the same in the Home Affairs Corporation. Now, Home Affairs has several sections, and it's my suspicion that while one section has been giving out more multiple entry visas, you have another section that disagrees with this, and as a result, the whip's been cracking at Australian airports more and more, over the last few months, enough that we've changed what we have always advised our clients, because we have seen more of our clients getting a hard time at airports, to the point where we've had to say, okay, things quite clearly changed. We've had clients, holders of valid multiple entry tourist visas, put through the third degree at Australian airports, questioned by the border force people as to their intentions and whether they meet the criteria of genuine visitors. Now keep in mind, we're talking Filipina ladies here, we're talking about people who come from a country where they're... have you ever tried saying to your Filipina lady, you should go and talk to the police, and seeing how she reacts? It's, no, not the police. No, I won't, because they're worried about what will happen. They don't trust the police, they don't trust thugs in uniforms, and then there they are, arriving in a strange country, set upon by large men in scary uniforms, who no doubt would be talking to them in thick Australian accents and saying, hello, we just wanted to find out what are you planning on doing here, because it looks too much... They're going to be getting that sort of thing fired at them. They won't know what's being said, and it's just going to be a mass of tears, and goodness me, we're kind of fond of the Filipino people, and we are warning people, because I don't want to see our girl applicants going through this, and you gentlemen, I'm sure you don't want to see it either. It's annoys the hell out of me. So, yeah. So anyway, yes, they have been questioned heavily. Now, with all tourist visas, you may use them to visit Australia. Now, genuine reasons are A, to play tourist, and or B, to visit friends and family. Now, you may be visiting a friend who happens to be a romantic friend, and there is nothing wrong with this. Now, you may stay with that friend, and there's nothing wrong with this either. The issue is that you may not use a tourist visa as a substitute for a partner visa. Now, at what point does visiting become living together? Blowed if I know. There's nothing clearly defined in legislation to say at what point this crosses over, and I don't believe a cranky man with a stern uniform at the airport can define this either in any sort of objective way. We've had clients on the second or third trip back told this is their last visit because they returned after 2 to 3 weeks. Now, I don't think this is right or fair, but the Border Force officer who makes this judgment is considered to be a delegate of the Minister of Immigration and is entitled to rule on this grey area. Jeff Harvey and Down Under Visa are registered migration agents, and we don't have any power or influence to tell these people to decide otherwise. So that's the way the situation is. Nothing we can do about it other than to warn you. So the future of the multiple entry tourist visa. Is this the end of the multiple entry tourist visa? Well, not at all, as far as I could say. But the days of thinking that it was a 1-year tourist visa with a few shopping trips along the way, I think we can consider that to be over. We can't expect them to relax over this because it isn't that sort of political climate. The votes seem to be, as they often tend to be, on the side of getting tough, not on the side of getting relaxed. So I think this is the way it's going to be from now on, so take this in and adjust as we have to do. Now, our advice to clients now, and this will continue to be our advice, is that you should aim for a maximum of 3 visits in a year. Okay, this is based on a tourist visa, a multiple entry tourist visa, which has a last day of entry 12 months later. So wait at least a month before returning. Okay, there is no inherent right to be together for a long time on a tourist visa, and I think that's really the point of this. I think it's, we had somebody who, look, to go to New Zealand, you need a visa for New Zealand. Don't assume that because you're in Australia on a tourist visa, you can trip off to New Zealand. But while she arrived at, I think, Gold Coast Airport, she just did an overnighter here in New Zealand, and she came back. She didn't even have any baggage. Well, look, they could have turned around and they could have refused her visa, right then and there. They could have stuck her on the next plane and sent her straight back to the Philippines based on that. Fortunately, they didn't do it. What they did is they told her, this is your last trip. Okay, so, but there is no inherent right to be together for a long time on a tourist visa. That's what partner visas are for. And look, if you really can't stand being apart, then this is the one to look at. Okay, there is no visa available where you can spend 1 year together on a simple, as people love to call them, on a simple tourist visa, which are not simple. Thank you very much. There is no way of doing that. Okay, that's what partner visas are for. Now, partner visas are very generous in how comfortable they make it for couples to remain together, but tourist visas remain as visitor visas. They're for short visits, followed by leaving the country and going back home. Now, that won't change in a hurry. Okay, so please don't ever think having a multiple entry tourist visa means, we get people saying, I had a 1 year visa, I have a 1 year visa. You say, show me what you got. No, I'm sorry, you don't have a 1 year visa. You have a 3-month visa where you can return again. You do not have a 1 year visa, and you are not going to get one. If you want something like that, well, then you need to be looking at partner visas. Okay, so yes, if you want your sweetheart from the Philippines to come and visit for a few months at a time, please talk to us about a tourist visa. If you can't stand being apart and see your lives as already intertwined, you see yourself as an inseparable couple, then talk to us about a partner visa, and we will be delighted to help keep you on the straight and narrow path to togetherness. Thanks very much. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you found this useful. Australian visas from the Philippines are not easy, and the outcome matters, as you well know. Please feel free to contact us anytime if you need some further help. And we look forward to talking to you again next time. Bye-bye.